Hello, people. Welcome back to another episode of the Nightwalk vlog. Man, I don't know how long this is going to be. I'm trying to make it quick because like the internet going crazy right now. But so, you guys know, well, Kanye West he's been going on his tour of red pilling the masses and expressing himself and he's been talking about he's been talking about Jews and he's been talking about Planned Parenthood and Jesus this, Christ that, right? You know the whole thing that's going on with him right now, man. And he was recently on the Alex Jones show with I believe there's another guy out there named Nick Fuentes or something. Kanye is running for president. He's trying to change the world for the better and whatnot, and he's trying to get rid of pornography and limit social media. He's on a whole quest right now, right? But he said something that people are going nuts about right now, right? So basically, he said that, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying that he said, "I love Hitler." Right? He said, "I love Hitler and I love Nazis," pretty much. And he was making a point that Hitler and the Nazis, while they did do bad things, they made good contributions to the world as well, right? And people, oh boy, this guy, right? This, oh man, oh, this, I mean, the nerve of this guy, but he has a point. Now, see, y'all gonna think I'm now y'all gonna think I'm crazy, right? But he has a point. I get where he coming from. And let me just go sideways a little bit, right? So I'm watching Gundam Seed. I'm watching Gundam Seed right now, right? And so one of the central the central themes of Gundam Seed is when you have two groups of people fighting against each other and how they get swept up and caught up in the cycle of violence. One side hurts the other, and then the other side hurts them back, and then eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. You killed my allies, I strike back, and then you want to retaliate. And one thing about Gundam Seed is that you don't see the war only from the perspective of the protagonist. You see the war from the perspective of both sides, right? And so what this does is it humanizes both sides of the conflict. Just for example, I remember early on in the show, right? I'm rooting for the protagonist because they're trying to escape from the antagonists that are pursuing them, and they're outnumbered, they're outgunned, and they're barely escaping. And so that's how it works when you watch stuff like this, right? You're rooting for the protagonist, and I'm looking at the main character Kira, and I'm like, I can't wait till he start killing some of these. Right? I'm like, yo, I can't wait till he catch a body. And so the show goes on, they're still being pursued, right? But again, you're seeing it from both perspectives, right? And so one of the guys that's pursuing him, that's on the bad guy side that's pursuing him, he's a young guy, he's like 15, and they show his personal life. They show his parents, they show his hobbies. He liked to play piano, right? They humanize him. They humanize this soldier that was tasked with the objective of destroying the protagonist, right? And so it gets to a point where there's a battle between, again, the protagonist and the antagonist. And the main character, Kira, spoiler alert, ends up killing this guy that they just showed you his whole life, right? He he's 15. He has a family. He likes to play the piano, and Kira ends up killing him. And I remember in that moment, I felt bad because I was like, I like that dude, right? And I couldn't help but think back to episodes earlier. I was so like, I can't wait for him to kill one of these guys. Right? I couldn't stand them. But when they started showing it from their perspective, you saw that, these weren't necessarily bad people. These weren't necessarily bad. Like, just because they were fighting against the protagonist doesn't mean that they were necessarily bad. Much like a lot of the people on the side of the protagonist, they were just swept up in the conflict of the war. They were in positions where they had to follow orders. They felt like they had something to protect, right? And so what does that have to do with what Kanye said about when he said, I love Hitler, right? I love Nazis, and talked about their contributions and whatnot. What he's saying is you can't look at an entire group as far as like Germany during World War II and say, okay, every soldier was bad. Every soldier was pure evil. But that, like, in our minds, that's the narrative that we think. We think, oh, every German soldier, every Nazi was a bad guy. He was a bad person. But in reality, these men, they had children who cried when they died. They had wives. They had mothers who mourned for their deaths, who worried about them. These men had hobbies. They had goals. They had lives. A lot of these guys, they were swept up in the war. They were drafted, or they believed that they were fighting for a just cause. They believed in what they were doing, right? And so you can't just look at Nazi Germany and say every Nazi was bad, every German soldier was bad, because from their perspective, they felt as justified in what they were doing as we did. And so just to kind of further illustrate my point, right, because World War II is a war where it's kind of almost universally agreed that, America, Great Britain, and our allies, we were the good guys, we were the protagonists, and the Nazis and the Japanese, and they were all just straight pure evil, right? Just all bad. But then fast forward, look at Vietnam. Look at Vietnam. Now, Vietnam is a war where now we look back at it, and we not only look at it as a war that was a failure, we look at it as a war where we should have never been there. And some of us would say we were the bad guys in that war, right? And you have to understand, when you step outside of your own position and look at things from every perspective, when you look at the Vietnam War from the perspective of the Vietnamese, and they to them, we were the Nazis. To them, we were the Nazi Germans. That's what they looked at us the way we looked at the Nazi Germans, right? To them, those American soldiers, they're pure evil. They're all bad. They're killing us. They're raping us. They're burning. They're doing, right? But we know that all the boys, all the men that we sent over there, they were not pure evil. Some of them, we sent some psychopaths. Right? It's always some psychopaths. Let's get it straight. But we know, we don't, even though we recognize that that was a war that was a failure, that was a war where we should not have been there, we don't look at those soldiers and say they were evil, they were pure evil. But you have to understand, because we know, from our perspective, we know these were young men who went to school, who fell in love, who had kids, who had favorite foods, who had hobbies, who had goals and dreams. They laughed, they cried, they lived, then they were drafted. And they felt like, you know what? Now, depending, right? Some of them felt like this is America. they're not going to send me to go kill for no reason. I believe in this country. I believe in my leaders. I'm fighting to protect something. I'm protecting those that I love. Right? They didn't go over there just pure evil. Right? No, right? But you got to understand, when you look at it from our perspective, we know that the men that we sent over there, when it weren't like we were just sending demons over there. But from the perspective of the Vietnamese, that's what they saw. And that's what we saw when we looked at them. We looked at them as the enemy. These evil rice growing motherfuckers. Right? That's how we look. But when you take a second to step outside of, again, your limited perspective and look at it from the other side, you see, oh man, like, there's no reason why some of those American soldiers couldn't have been friends with some of those German soldiers. Why some of those American soldiers couldn't have been friends with those Vietnamese soldiers. But it wasn't able to be because we were swept up in the conflict. We were swept up in the war, and there was already bloodshed. There was already thousands of people who died, and we wanted revenge. You know, we had to finish the war. You gotta, right? And so I could tell from what Kanye was saying, or at least that's what I believe when I watching the interview. I believe that's what he was trying to say. I think that he's kind of leveled up his way of thinking to recognize that things are not always as simple as good and evil. We want to think of the Nazi Germans as just like they're all in a room with devil horns coming out of their heads and and red glowing eyes and just diabolical. But no, a lot. In fact, I would say most of them were normal, probably just normal people, right? That just got swept up in the time, got swept up in the conflict of the period of their time. They probably got drafted, or they believed in what Hitler was trying to do. They believed in what their leaders were trying to do. They believed that I need to protect my wife. I need to protect my family the same way that we did. But it's no way if you have any sense, there's no way in hell you can sit here and believe that every single Nazi German was just a terrible, terrible person, right? That there weren't good people over there. But sometimes good people get swept up in conflicts, and you might not necessarily be on the right side of history, so to speak. The narrative is going to paint you and your side out to be the bad people, right? But again, if you have sense, you recognize that that's not possible. There's no way every right. And I believe that's what he's trying to express. That's what he's trying to communicate. And obviously, right, obviously a lot of people are not catching that. They hit like when you don't understand what he's trying to say, you're going to be offended. Like, I've seen how people are responding to this interview on Twitter, and I'm not really surprised, because it really does take like next level thinking to understand what he's trying to express, right? And not just look at it on the surface and just say, okay, that's crazy, right? He's trying to say that the narrative is that Nazi Germany, Hitler, pure evil, but it's not that simple. Whether you like it or not, it's not that simple, right? And again, if you look at the Vietnam War from their perspective, America, pure evil, right? But we know that's not the case, right? We know that that's not true, and I believe that that's what he's trying to express. But unfortunately, I think most people are not going to get that. I think most people are going to hear him say, I love Hitler and I love Nazis, and that's all they're going to hear, because Nazi and Hitler is synonymous with evil. And so they're going to hear him say that and think he's saying, I love evil. No, he's saying that I love the good that was on that side. I love the good that was over there. I love the good men. I love the good that was in those soldiers. I love the good that was in Hitler. And I believe that's what he's trying to say. And I just want to comment on, because I just find it so funny because, again, watching Gundam Seed, that's the central theme. That's the central theme. They put so much emphasis on showing the perspective of both sides, and how, and then when you see it, you see, like, man, like, why are these people fighting? Right? I mean, there are reasoning for them fighting, but most of it is just that they're swept up in the conflict. They're swept up in shit that happened before, people who died, things that blew up last year, and they're trying to get revenge or trying to retake ground. But the thing is, when they take time, or when they have the opportunity to communicate with each other, they're like, wait a minute, why are we right? Whenever they have a chance to actually communicate with each other face to face, they realize, like, damn, like, he's not a bad person. There's a part in it where the main character Kira kills one of his enemies, or believes he killed him, and then he breaks down and he said, I didn't want to kill him, because he met him personally, and they had dialogue, they had a meal together, right? And then they ended up meeting on the battlefield. And so when he realized that he killed the person that he kind of got to know, he was like, I didn't want to, I didn't want to kill this guy. What the fuck are we doing, right? And so I think there's a lot of value in what Kanye said, but unfortunately, a lot of people are not gonna catch that, because, again, Noxie is synonymous with evil. Most people are not gonna understand what he's trying to say. But I just wanted to put that out there, because, and you got to see this interview. you got to see this interview, man. I watched about an hour of it, and it's just it's interesting. It's very interesting. But when I look at Kanye, I can't lie. I'm not gonna sit here and say I think that he's completely mentally stable either, right? But then I remember something that happened recently, right? When I was doing my live stream. And you guys know, when I do my live streams, I get kind of manic and weird, right? Like right now, I'm more calm and I'm just expressing ideas. But you notice when I'm on my live stream, I'm right, the hair and right, so I'm sweating and shit, and I start yelling sometimes. And so, again, I'm not sure, but I think his energy when he's doing those little public talks kind of reminds me of when I'm in that mode, when I know that the camera's rolling. I get excited, and then I might seem a little manic or whatever. I'm hoping that that's kind of what it is, but I don't think you can look at stuff like that and try to gauge his. You can try, but I don't think it's an accurate assessment of where he is mentally. I think you would have to talk to him one-on-one to really see where he's at mentally. Have a real one-on-one, because when the cameras are rolling, I know how that is when you're naturally an eccentric, energetic person, easily sensitive, excitable, because I get the same way. And people think I'm crazy sometimes when they see that side of me. But you can, again, here I'm all relaxed and articulate and for the most part, right? But I see that he's obviously going through like a not only a red pill awakening, but also a religious awakening. But he doesn't seem all the way stable, and I'm not trying to say that that's what it is. I'm just saying that um I'm slightly worried about the trajectory that he's on. I'm hoping that he's he's mentally stable, but I can't lie, I am a little bit worried, because again, just he got a whole gimp mask on, and then he brought like oh God, you just got to see it, man. But man. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope I was able to convey my thoughts, and I hope that I was able to, I hope that I didn't misunderstand what he was trying to say, but I do think that I do think that I have a vague idea of the point that he was trying to make. But again, he's he's in for it. I hope he can handle what's coming next. But I'll see you guys later.